What's up, YouTube, and welcome back to the Acura Audio Garage. Today we have a 4th generation Acura TL that we're going to be putting a sub in. So we're doing some dual comp R's, 10-inch. Then we have this CXA 800.1. Here's our birth sheet. And that's really it. Power wires already in the car. Got some stuff done already. Let me show you that. But before I get into it, just make sure you give the video a like. Subscribe. If you have any Acura questions, AcuraAudioGarage.com. Looking to put a radio in your Acura, AcuraAudioGarage.com. And yeah, let me show you what I got. Alright, so I took the back seat out. Those are just these clips. And if you're familiar with Acura's, Hondas, you know that you just got to apply the pressure, get your hand underneath, and these will easily release. Then they have hooks that you just have to kind of lift this all the way up and angle them out. And then we have 4 bolts. Only thing about the bolts is these are pretty easy to get off. This one right here. This one here, it's going to be a bit rusty. You might want to use an impact or something, or some penetrating oil. Then our trunk, I can tell that this car has had subs before. Can you also? There's 2 big signs. We have all of our wiring running over there, and then this whole thing has been dynamited. And it has pretty good dynamite, to be honest. They got the whole trunk. It looks good. But we're going to be using a line-out converter off the factory sub. So this is the kicker piece that only needs left and right, or basically 2 sources of audio, and it'll generate a turn on for you. And then our wiring's already in the car, so we're just going to reuse that. I'm thinking of where I'm going to put the amp. Don't have an exact location yet, but I have started taking some of the trim out, and so you can see one of the big things about this car is they already ran the wiring, but there's a big problem with that, and let me show you what I'm talking about. So we're gonna pop this cover off. Yeah, I know. It is what it is. So here's our problem, guys. We have our wire. It's actually ran. There it is. Never mind then. But yeah, guys, here's our wiring. So they didn't want to go over the intake, which makes sense. So they ran it underneath. It's zip tied to that, and then it goes down into the car. So our wiring is pretty much set. That's really the hardest part. Where they went through the firewall is right over there. There's plenty of space back there. So if you're looking to do this yourself, it's going to be above the gas pedal, really where you're going to want to go. And then you're going to run your cable however you need it to get to your battery. And that's not a bad place to put your fuse, but this is over the recommended length. It's supposed to be about 18 inches max. But I could see why they did that. There's really no other good place unless you would have done it here, really short line. I don't know. There's other creative ways, I'm sure, but that's not a terrible way as long as you have a fuse there. Alright guys, so we are wrapping it up with this Acura. I know I didn't really show you too much. We used that kicker piece on the line-out converter on that rear input. We used the Honda speaker adapter, so we didn't have to do any wire cutting. We just had to drill a remote. That gave us our RCAs and our amp turn on. And now, let me show you the finished product. So here are our kicker subs. And then we ended up mounting the amp back there, so it's securely mounted. It's not gonna go anywhere. The wire runs out, and then the subs are right here. It's gonna be up to the customer how he chooses to put them together. But let me give you a little demo. Alright guys, different day. Just wanted to talk about something that I didn't talk about in the video, and I'm sure it's going to get a lot of questions, so I'd rather just add it to the video than try to answer them in the comments. So you're going to wonder where do we hook up our line-out converter, what part number that we use. put the part number in the description. I'll also show an image of it. But I'm going to show you the premise of what we did for that car here on video. And then this is really the idea behind it. And then you just have to execute on your end with the correct speaker harness for this car is going to be the 7800 from Metra. And that's going to be this Honda speaker adapter. I don't have it, so I'm using this Scotch part. Some Hondas have this speaker adapter. So you can see it says 92 Honda Civic speaker harness. So it's the same premise where you take one of each side and you hook it up to this. So ultimately what we're going to do is we're going to take our negative gray and then our negative white. So both of these are going to go to black, and then our solid gray and our solid white are going to go to white. And the reason we're doing that is because we're hooking this up to the factory subwoofer output. So we're disconnecting the factory subwoofer, we're adding this. All the signals now coming to here and then feeding our line out converter instead of going to that factory sub. Along with that connection, you also have to put both of these to ground. It's not necessary for every single amp, but I just recommend it to get rid of any noise and so you don't have to deal with any noise. Now your line out converter might have some adjustments so that you can decrease or increase the output voltage of the RCAs. It's going to be on to you how you handle it, but the kicker piece that we showed on video with DC offset generated a output for remote. Now, funny story behind this, and you really need to pay attention to this. That kicker piece was generating an output, but our customer liked to crank his sub to the max. So when he raised the volume all the way up, the DC offset technology, which is what generates that remote out, was gone. So that meant that the remote out actually changed voltage from 12 volts to a variable of like 9, 5, like etc. And it caused the amp to go into protect. So we kept having this issue where the customer would come back. He's like, hey, my amp keeps going into protect. My amp keeps going into protect. So we took off the back seat. We did the ground. We reran the power wire. We did all these things, changed all the wire. And then finally, I'm like, okay, like something's definitely going wrong here. So we start measuring voltages across everything. We're like, okay, why is the remote dropping in voltage? And why is this causing it to go into protect? So when we call Kicker, and Kicker's like, oh yeah, that's one of the protect features. If you lose, if the voltage line on the remote changes while the amp is in operation, it will go into protect. So you need to stabilize that remote line. So that kicker piece will work. If you're a casual listener, every once in a while, you will blast your music. It's very convenient. But if you want to ensure, or if you're an installer and you want to ensure you have a perfect install, you don't want your customer coming back, I would recommend, and you don't want your customer coming back, I would recommend that you use a powered line out converter. And I'll show you what that looks like now. I'm not sure of the actual name, but this would be a passive line out converter, meaning it's just grabbing the voltage from the speakers, converting that and getting it out to you. So there's no source of remote here. Like the LC2i or the LC1i, etc., or other common ones like this, it's going to require ground. It's going to require 12 volts constant, and then that'll allow you to generate a remote out or give this a remote in when you want it to turn on, etc. But this is also a line out converter. You can see it has the same speaker inputs, it has some of the Acubase stuff and setting the level of the output. And then with the LC2i, you get two outputs. But ultimately, this is a line out converter. It does a lot more than that, but it's a powered line out converter so that you can stabilize that voltage. And that amp was going into protect because the voltage for the line out, just to turn the amp on, would change. So I don't want that to happen to you and you break your head, come back on this video like, yeah, well, none of this works. So remember, either find a different source for your remote output or find a way to stabilize the remote output of the kicker piece. Or if you are playing your sub loud, you're just a casual installer, know that that could be something that could happen and you'll just have to turn the volume down. The amp will turn on again and then you can continue with your day, etc. But if you don't want this to happen to you, I would recommend a powered line out converter, something like that LC2i, or if not, just grab the remote out from an accessory or generate it. There's different ways of generating remote out for your amp. So that kicker piece is one of them with DC offset, but there are other ways you can link into those. But I just wanted to make sure I covered that with the little instructions that I gave you, and that you were fully aware, so that you don't run into the same issue that we did. But as always, guys, I'm going to ask that you give the video a like, subscribe, share with anybody. If you're in the area and want to have something installed, check us out. If you are looking for something to install a radio in your Acura, AcuraAudioGarage.com. And again, guys, thanks for watching and supporting. I appreciate that.